A top free agent is set to sign for WWE or AEW, and we haven't seen the last of Jeff Hardy in All Elite Wrestling. But first, Wrestling Inc. have reported that yet another hurdle has been placed in front of AEW ahead of the release of their first video game, Fight Forever, with them now in the midst of a trademark battle over the name. The report notes that Game Changer Wrestling filed to oppose the trademark AEW Fight Forever on March 1st, before indicating that they needed an extended deadline, which was originally March 2nd, with this now being moved to March 31st. The foundation of the claim comes from an event held by GCW named Fight Forever in January 2021, which was a 24-hour-long event with no fans in attendance in order to benefit and showcase indie wrestlers during the pandemic. AEW would later file for the trademark Fight Forever in March 2022, before GCW filed for the same term 4 months later, this 17 months after their event took place. If a report from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful is to be believed, GCW are actually not looking to delay the release of Fight Forever or even get money from AEW, but they are simply seeking reassurance that they can still use the name for future charity shows, which is positive news for those looking forward to playing the game, with a settlement between the two sides hopefully coming sooner rather than later. Now let's go to a positive health update on WWE Hall of Famer Jerry Lawler, who suffered from a stroke in early February before being admitted to hospital. He would then eventually be released from UCI, although he would need to stay at his Florida home whilst undergoing outpatient therapy. Well, according to PW Insider, Lawler has now recovered to the point that he's able to return to his home in Memphis, Tennessee to continue his recuperation. Mercedes Moné made quite the debut in New Japan Pro-Wrestling this year, first confronting IWGP Women's Champion Kairi at Wrestle Kingdom in January, before taking the title from her 1 month later at Battle in the Valley. With Moné now seemingly set for her first defense of her new title against Azumi at Sakura Genesis on April 8th, we now have news on who her opponent will be 15 days later at Stardom All-Star Grand Queendom in Yokohama, Japan. The show is being billed as the all-women's promotion's biggest show in history, and according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the Mercedes Moné and Mayu Iwatani IWGP Women's title match can't be announced until after April 8th, when Moné defends against Azumi, the Stardom High Speed Champion, on the New Japan show at Sumo Hall in Tokyo. So it's notable they are pushing the biggest show in the company history, and Moné will be getting the most money from a Stardom show of anyone in history, but because of a tradition of how they do things, they can't push her for the show until 15 days earlier. Back in September 2021, popular UFC star Jorge Masvidal would link up with American Top Team coach Dan Lambert as part of his faction of fighters, before taking out Chris Jericho and Jake Hager at Dynamite Grand Slam. Since then, Masvidal hasn't been seen in a pro wrestling ring, despite hopes that he could make the transition from fighter to wrestler at some point, something he would discuss this week in an interview with Jim Varsaloni. When asked if it will appear in AEW again, Jorge would note that he's unsure if the company would want him back, this after what happened last time, and he would say, "I can't tell you that I'll be at the show or involved in the show, but as a fan I'll definitely be there. If they got time to include this guy, because they know that when I come for these wrestlers, none of that fake stuff, I'm gonna try and hurt them for real. Ask Chris Jericho, ask anybody that got in the way, I'm trying to hurt them for real. So if they want that heat again, it's cool, but I don't think they want to see me back in there after what I did. Tell you the truth, I'm gonna go as a fan because I love their shows. They got the rowdiest shows when it comes to pro wrestling, so I'm gonna be there just to show love. But I don't think they want to see that over there ever since I did that to Jericho. They're kind of worried about me." In this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, it was noted that absent WWE superstar Alexa Bliss is currently on hiatus from the company and will be for a while. Well, the wrestler herself has now reacted to the report, noting that her absence isn't her decision and that she isn't on hiatus after all. And Alexa would take to Twitter to say, "Tired of seeing these tweets. I am not on a hiatus. They know where to find me. Also need to remember, you only see what parts of life I want you to see." Why WWE are not using Alexa remains to be seen, but going by her tweets, she's ready to go whenever the company want her back. And before we get to the rest of today's stories, be sure to subscribe to Wrestle Planet if you haven't done so already, as we aim to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And also head over to Wrestle Planet Gaming if you're into wrestling video games, ahead of the launch of both AEW Fight Forever and WWE 2K23. But with that said, let's get to the rest of the video. Last night, a report from PW Insider would drop that revealed that Great Muta is set to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame this year, with the Japanese legend having recently wrapped up his retirement tour, which saw him share the ring with the likes of Sting, Darby Allin, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Tetsuya Naito, whether it be as partners or opponents. Whilst he didn't ever work for WWE, Muta has competed in every top promotion in Japan, including New Japan, All Japan, and Pro Wrestling Noah, with him also having worked for both World Championship Wrestling and the National Wrestling Alliance in the United States throughout his much decorated career. And whilst we awaited the announcement of Great Muta into the Hall of Fame last night, we would see the first official name be revealed during WWE SmackDown, with Rey Mysterio set to take his rightful place in the Hall this year. It was also revealed that Mysterio will battle his son Dominic at this year's WrestleMania 39 event, in what is expected to be a passing of the torch moment. The Hall of Fame ceremony is scheduled to take place immediately after the March 31st episode of SmackDown, the night before WrestleMania Night 1. And with that said, who do you think's going to join Rey Mysterio and the Great Muta in this year's class? Let me know in the comments down below. Next, we have more news coming out of the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter concerning the future of a certain top free agent. As we discussed in last night's video, Taya Valkyrie has officially left Impact Wrestling, with many fans now expecting her to be the Canadian that challenges AEW TBS champion Jade Cargill in Winnipeg next week on AEW Dynamite. With that said, Dave Meltzer would provide an update on Taya's status ahead of the show, with her expected to join either WWE or AEW in the very near future, and the Observer notes, Valkyrie finished up with Impact as she was working with both companies Impact and MLW, and on occasion AAA, where she still holds the Reina del Reinas title. She is not committed to MLW for a long time either. She is likely going to AEW or WWE, and whichever one is supposed to be made clear within a short period of time. Jeff Hardy hasn't been seen on All Elite Wrestling television since his DUI arrest in June 2022, his third offense in 10 years. The latest bump in his struggle with addiction would come just 3 months after he made his debut for the company. Now that the case against Hardy is officially over, with him receiving a sentence that includes a 10-year ban from driving, fans are speculating if we could see him back inside a wrestling ring anytime soon, a question his brother Matt addressed this week on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast. Matt feels that Jeff is in a better place right now, adding that he doesn't think we've seen the last of Jeff Hardy in AEW, and he would say, now that I feel like Jeff is in a good space and feels good about where he's at in life, if he ends up coming back, I feel like there's still a lot of positive things we can really do to make great contributions to the industry. My gut thinks he wants to redeem himself. It's not going to be instantaneous. Once again, we haven't talked about stuff, and he's taking care of some physical issues that he's been dealing with right now, so I don't think we've seen Jeff appear on AEW television for the last time. I think we'll see it again. In what capacity? I'm not sure of that right now, but I do think he wants to redeem himself. I think that's very important to him. He's looking for redemption. And before you go, make sure you check out 10 UFC fighters who are perfect for pro wrestling.